Teachers tried to humiliate a young black boy in front of his classmates. They thought his violin was nothing but a joke. But the moment he lifted his bow, the entire room fell silent. And soon his music brought everyone to tears. This is not just a story about music. It's about courage, injustice, and the power of one voice to break through cruelty. Stay with me, because what happened that day inside a small classroom will stay with you forever. If this story touches your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful true life stories. Now let's step into it. In a quiet neighborhood on the east side of Atlanta, Georgia. The streets were lined with tall oak trees that had been there for decades, their roots cracking the sidewalks and their branches shading small brick homes. In one of those homes lived a boy named Marcus Williams. Marcus was 12 years old, a skinny kid with big brown eyes and hands that always seemed to be moving. When he wasn't sketching shapes on scraps of paper, he was fiddling with strings, rubber bands, or anything that could make a sound. His mother, Denise, often joked that her boy was born with music in his veins. Life in the Williams household was modest but warm. Denise worked long shifts as a nurse at the county hospital. She left early in the morning and often came home after dark, tired but determined to give Marcus and his younger sister Leah every chance she never had. Their father had left years ago, and Denise carried the load alone. Still, she never let the house feel heavy. Marcus loved school, though not for the reasons most kids did. He wasn't the loudest in class. He wasn't the best at sports. But in music class, Marcus felt alive. His violin, an old secondhand instrument Denise had saved up to buy from a pawn shop, was his treasure. Its wood was scratched, and one of the pegs stuck sometimes, but to Marcus it was magic. Every morning before school, he sat at the kitchen table, practicing scales while Leah ate her cereal. The sound wasn't always pretty, but he played with focus, his head bent, bow moving carefully across the strings. Leah would wrinkle her nose and say, "Marcus, it sounds like a cat crying." He'd grin and keep going. Denise encouraged him, though she worried. She knew middle school wasn't always kind, especially to kids who stood out. "You've got a gift, baby," she'd tell him. "Don't ever let anyone make you ashamed of it." Marcus would nod, holding those words close like a shield. At school, though, things weren't easy. Marcus went to Jefferson Middle, a place where sports reigned supreme. Football trophies lined the halls and the loudest cheers were saved for pep rallies. A boy with a violin didn't exactly fit in. Kids teased him sometimes, whispering when he walked by with his worn black case. Still, Marcus didn't let it break him. He had one true friend, Jamal, who sat with him at lunch. Jamal was tall, funny, and always cracking jokes. "Man, one day you're going to play at the Super Bowl halftime show," Jamal would say, pointing to Marcus's violin case. Marcus laughed, shaking his head. Nobody wants a violin at the Super Bowl, but a tiny part of him dared to imagine it. The teachers at Jefferson were a mixed bag. Some cared deeply, others less so. Mrs. Jenkins, the choir director, noticed Marcus's dedication and often told him he had real talent. But a few others looked at him differently. They doubted a kid like Marcus, from his neighborhood, could really amount to much. One teacher in particular, Mr. Thompson, seemed to have it out for him. Thompson taught social studies, but he also helped run assemblies. He had a sharp voice and a habit of making kids laugh at others' expense. When Marcus once mentioned in class that he played violin, Thompson smirked and said, "Well, I hope you're better than you look carrying that thing." The kids chuckled and Marcus sank into his seat. But home was different. At night, Marcus would sit on the porch steps, violin tucked under his chin, playing while the cicadas hummed around him. Denise would watch from the doorway, tired eyes softening. Neighbors sometimes paused on their walks, surprised by the sound drifting out into the warm Georgia air. The violin gave Marcus something school couldn't: confidence. With it, he wasn't just the quiet kid from the east side. He was someone with a voice, someone who could make people feel. That fall, a notice went up at school. There would be a talent showcase before Thanksgiving break. Students could perform anything: songs, dances, comedy, whatever they chose. For most, it was just a fun break from routine. But for Marcus, it was a chance. He hesitated at first. He knew what people thought of him. He knew the risk of standing on stage with his old violin, kids snickering, teachers smirking, But Denise urged him, "This is your time, baby. Don't be scared of them. Let them hear what I hear." Jamal agreed. "Bro, you gotta do it. Trust me, they won't be laughing when you're done." So Marcus signed up. He didn't tell many people, but word spread anyway. By the week of the showcase, whispers filled the hallways. "Marcus is gonna play his violin?" Some kids rolled their eyes. Others couldn't wait to see what would happen, whether he'd shine or crash. The night before the performance, Marcus polished his violin as best he could. Denise sat at the table, sipping coffee while Leah braided her doll's hair. "You ready?" Denise asked softly. Marcus looked at the scratches on his violin, then at his mother. "I think so." But deep down, nerves twisted his stomach. He wanted to believe in himself. He wanted to believe his music could matter. Still, he couldn't shake the image of teachers smirking, classmates snickering. That was the world Marcus lived in, caught between the warmth of home and the cold doubt of school. A boy with a violin in a place that didn't always value quiet gifts. And as he drifted to sleep that night, the stage ahead of him loomed like both a dream and a storm. The morning of the showcase dawned gray and restless, the kind of sky that made the world feel heavy. Marcus sat at the breakfast table with his violin case on the chair beside him. He barely touched his toast. His mother noticed. "You're quiet," Denise said, sipping her coffee. "I'm just thinking," Marcus replied. "About today?" He nodded. Leah piped up, swinging her legs under the chair. "Don't mess up, Marcus." She grinned mischievously. Marcus shot her a look, but Denise reached across the table, covering his hand. "Ignore your sister. You're going to do fine. Just remember, you're not playing for them. You're playing for yourself." Marcus wanted to believe her, but when he arrived at school, doubt slammed into him like a wall. The gymnasium had been transformed for the showcase. Folding chairs lined the floor. A makeshift stage stood at the front, draped with a banner that read, "Jefferson Middle Talent Show." The smell of popcorn and school pizza filled the air. Kids buzzed with excitement, crowding the aisles, whispering, laughing. Marcus clutched his violin case as he walked in. Jamal met him near the bleachers. "Nervous?" "Yeah," Marcus admitted. "Don't be. You got this." But as Marcus scanned the room, he saw the smirks. A group of boys from his math class pointed at his violin case and whispered. One mimicked playing, exaggerated and goofy. Marcus lowered his eyes, heat crawling up his neck. That was when Mr. Thompson's voice boomed over the microphone. "Welcome, everyone, to our annual Thanksgiving showcase." The crowd cheered. Thompson, with his crisp shirt and confident grin, looked more like a TV host than a teacher. He thrived on attention. As he introduced the acts, Marcus noticed the way Thompson glanced at him. There was a glint there, something less than kind. The first performers went up. A pair of cheerleaders did a dance routine. The crowd whooped and clapped. Then came a boy who told jokes, his classmates laughing loudly at every punchline. When Mrs. Jenkins's choir sang a hymn, Marcus relaxed for a moment, closing his eyes at the sound. But the piece didn't last. Mr. Thompson returned to the microphone. "Up next we have Marcus Williams." A hush fell over the crowd, followed quickly by murmurs. "The violin kid?" someone whispered. Marcus's chest tightened. His legs felt heavy as he walked to the stage. He set his violin case on the stool and carefully opened it. His fingers trembled. But then Thompson's voice cut through the quiet. "Now, folks," he said with a chuckle, "don't laugh too hard if Marcus hits a sour note. This ain't Carnegie Hall." The room erupted with chuckles. Even some teachers smiled. Marcus froze, bow in hand. Mrs. Jenkins frowned sharply from the sidelines, but she said nothing. Marcus wanted to sink into the floor. His mother's words echoed in his mind. "Don't ever let anyone make you ashamed of it." He took a shaky breath, lifted the violin, placed it under his chin. And then he began to play. The first notes were soft, trembling. A few kids snickered. One coughed loudly, mocking. Marcus's ears burned. But then something shifted. His bow steadied. His fingers found their rhythm. The melody, sweet, aching, alive, rose above the noise. The gym fell strangely still. It was as though the room was being pulled into his world. But just as Marcus began to find courage, disaster struck. One of the boys in the front row stuck out his foot, kicking the leg of the stool where Marcus's case rested. The case tumbled open. A string of pencils rolled across the stage. Someone must have planted them there as a prank. Laughter burst through the silence. Marcus's face flushed. His bow faltered. Thompson's voice cut in, feigning mock concern. "Careful there. Marcus, don't trip on your school supplies." The crowd roared. Marcus gripped the violin tighter, fighting back tears. Should he run off stage? Should he quit? But he remembered Jamal's words. "They won't be laughing when you're done." He closed his eyes, blocked out the laughter. Let the music guide him. Slowly the sound returned, low, trembling at first, then fuller, stronger. He poured his fear, his hurt, his loneliness into the notes. Each stroke of the bow was a cry, a plea, a prayer. One by one, the laughs died down. Students leaned forward. Even teachers grew quiet. And then, something remarkable happened. A girl in the third row, one of the cheerleaders, wiped her eyes. Marcus didn't notice. He was lost in the music. The melody soared, wrapping the gym in warmth, in sadness, in beauty. By the time he lowered the bow, silence stretched across the room. A silence so deep, so heavy, it felt sacred. Then, applause. Loud, thunderous applause. Marcus blinked, stunned. But amid the clapping, he caught sight of Mr. Thompson. Arms crossed, jaw tight, no smile. The moment should have been a victory. But the look in Thompson's eyes promised something else, something darker. After the showcase, students crowded Marcus in the hallway. "Man, that was amazing," Jamal clapped him on the back. "You made me cry," one girl admitted shyly. For the first time, Marcus felt like he belonged. His violin had spoken louder than the laughter. But not everyone was pleased. Thompson stopped him outside the gym. His voice was low, sharp. "Don't think one song makes you special, Williams. Stay in your lane." Marcus stared, confused. "I just played." "That's right. And don't forget, you'll always be the boy with the scratched-up violin." Nothing more. Then Thompson walked away, leaving Marcus shaken. That night at home, Denise noticed her son's silence. "What's wrong?" she asked. "I played well," Marcus said softly. "But Mr. Thompson, he—" Marcus trailed off. Denise's jaw tightened. She knew too well how people could try to break a child's spirit. "Baby, some folks don't want to see you shine. That's their problem, not yours." Marcus nodded, but the sting lingered. The next day, whispers filled the school. Some kids praised Marcus. Others spread rumors that his song was a fluke. By lunchtime, Jamal slammed his tray down. "Man, they're just jealous. Don't listen to them." But Marcus couldn't shake the unease. Then came another blow. Mr. Thompson announced in class that a special holiday assembly was coming up, and that Marcus would grace them with another violin performance. His tone was mocking, but the assignment was real. Marcus froze. Another performance? In front of the whole school? Thompson smiled thinly. "Let's see if lightning strikes twice." The room chuckled. Marcus's stomach twisted. He wanted to refuse, but he knew he couldn't. And what happened at that assembly would test him in ways he never imagined. Because this time, Thompson wasn't planning to just embarrass him. He was planning to break him. But what happened next shocked everyone. The week after the showcase, Marcus carried himself differently. He walked a little taller, spoke a little louder. But late at night, when the house was still, the weight of Mr. Thompson's words crept back in. "You'll always be the boy with the scratched-up violin." That line haunted him. Marcus knew his violin wasn't much to look at. Its wood was worn, its case scuffed and dented. He sometimes wondered what it would feel like to hold one of the gleaming instruments he saw in music magazines at the library. But when he thought about it longer, he realized something. That violin was part of his story. He remembered the day his mother brought it home. It was summer, and the Georgia air was thick with heat. Denise had come in carrying the case, her uniform wrinkled from another long shift. She set it on the kitchen table and pushed it toward him. "What's this?" Marcus had asked, wide-eyed. "Open it and see." Inside, the violin rested like treasure, even with its scratches and loose string. Marcus touched it like it might disappear. "It's not brand new," Denise admitted, "but it's yours. I know you've been wanting one." Marcus could barely speak. That night he stayed up past midnight, plucking the strings, trying to make sense of the sounds. His mother, exhausted, had fallen asleep in her chair nearby. The lamplight fell across her face, and Marcus had made himself a promise. If she could work that hard for him, he would play until his music meant something. The violin wasn't just an instrument. It was proof of his mother's sacrifice. Proof that even in a house without much money, love could carve out space for dreams. And it reminded him of his grandmother, too. She had passed away when Marcus was only 6, but he remembered sitting at her feet in church. She would hum along with the choir, her wrinkled hands tapping his shoulder in rhythm. She used to whisper, "Music is healing, baby. Don't ever stop singing inside yourself." Now, years later, Marcus felt her presence each time he played. Still, he couldn't ignore the sting of being belittled. Older folks knew that sting well. The feeling of being looked down on, not because of who you were, but because of where you came from or how you looked. Marcus understood more than he let on. He knew his family didn't have the things others did. He saw his mother's tired eyes when she came home. He saw Leah wearing hand-me-down clothes, trying to act like she didn't care. He carried those things with him when he lifted his bow. That was the quiet truth. His music wasn't just practice. It was a prayer. It was hope. It was a way of saying, "I matter. My voice matters." At school, some kids still whispered behind his back. Some even mocked the way he held his violin case like it was worth a fortune. Marcus tried to ignore it, but every word stung. One afternoon, Mrs. Jenkins pulled him aside after choir practice. "Marcus," she said softly, "you have something rare. Don't let them take it away from you." "But what if they never stop laughing?" he asked. She smiled sadly. "They laughed at me too, when I first started directing the choir. They said it was silly, that I'd never make a living. But you know what? Their laughter didn't feed me, didn't clothe me, didn't make me who I am. I had to decide whose voice mattered more, mine or theirs." Her words sank deep. That night, Marcus sat on the porch again. Leah leaned against him, listening as he played a soft hymn their grandmother used to hum. The air smelled of pine and fried chicken drifting from a neighbor's window. "Marcus," Leah said quietly, "why do you play so much?" He looked at her, then back at the violin. "Because it's the only time I feel like I can say what's really in my heart." Leah thought about it, then smiled. "Well, I like it. Even if it does sound like a cat sometimes." Marcus laughed, the tension breaking. In those quiet moments, Marcus realized what kept him going. It wasn't applause. It wasn't a trophy. It was family. It was the memory of his grandmother's hum, his mother's sacrifice, his sister's teasing love. It was the belief that even when the world tried to shame him, music could remind him of who he really was. And that was why, when Mr. Thompson announced the holiday assembly performance, Marcus didn't say no. Fear burned in his stomach, yes, but so did something stronger. Resilience. He wouldn't let Thompson steal his song, not when his music carried the weight of everything his family had given him. The day of the holiday assembly arrived with cold winter air seeping through the school's old windows. The gym was packed tighter than Marcus had ever seen it. Parents filled the folding chairs, teachers lined the walls, and every student sat shoulder to shoulder on the bleachers. Red and green banners hung from the ceiling. The smell of popcorn and cafeteria hot dogs drifted through the room. Marcus clutched his violin case. His palms were damp. His heart beat so loudly he thought others could hear it. He kept telling himself, "Play for yourself, play for mom, play for grandma." But fear pressed down heavier than ever. From the stage, Mr. Thompson adjusted the microphone, smiling like a showman. "Welcome, everyone, to Jefferson Middle's Holiday Assembly. We have a festive lineup for you today." He began announcing the acts: choir songs, skits, dances. The crowd clapped politely. But Marcus noticed something odd. Near the back of the stage, behind the curtain, Thompson had set up a large speaker and a small sound system. Marcus's stomach twisted. Why would a teacher need that for a student performance? Then Thompson's eyes landed on him. The grin he flashed was cold. Finally, Thompson spoke into the microphone again. And now, a very special performance. Y'all remember him from the showcase. Give it up for Marcus Williams and his violin. The students erupted into whispers. Some clapped. Others snickered. Marcus stood, legs trembling, and walked to the stage. He set his violin case on the stool, opened it, and lifted the instrument carefully. The spotlight burned down on him. His hands shook. But he pressed the violin under his chin. Then it happened. Just as Marcus drew his bow for the first note, the speaker crackled, and out blasted screeching, distorted sounds like a cat howling mixed with nails on a chalkboard. The gym exploded in laughter. Marcus froze. Thompson held a remote behind his back, pretending to fiddle with the microphone. "Oops," he said loudly, feigning confusion. "Technical difficulties. Guess we'll see if Marcus can keep up with our sound system." The crowd roared, clapping and hollering as if it were part of the show. Marcus's face burned. He wanted to run, to hide. But then he saw her, his mother, standing at the back of the gym, still in her nurse's scrubs, hands clasped tight, eyes locked on him. No laughter touched her face, only pride, only faith. That image anchored him. Marcus closed his eyes, blocking out the noise, and placed his bow against the string. Slowly, carefully, he began to play. At first, the distorted noise from the speaker drowned him out, but Marcus played louder, bowing with strength he didn't know he had. The true notes cut through, trembling but steady. The laughter faded. He poured everything into the music, his grandmother's humming in church, his mother's sacrifices, Leah's teasing love. The melody rose, fragile yet powerful, filling the gym like a prayer. The distorted sound sputtered, then stopped. Thompson slapped the side of the speaker, pretending it had malfunctioned. But everyone's attention was already fixed on Marcus. The song swelled. Each note carried his story, the loneliness of being mocked, the weight of being underestimated, the unshakable hope that lived in his heart. Parents leaned forward, students stopped whispering. Teachers who had smirked before now sat stunned. By the time Marcus reached the final note, silence blanketed the gym. It hung heavy, unbroken, until one person stood, Mrs. Jenkins. She began to clap. Then others followed. Soon the gym thundered with applause, louder than anything Marcus had ever heard. He lowered his bow, chest heaving, eyes wet. But as the applause swelled, Thompson stepped forward, trying to regain control. "Well," he said with forced cheer, "looks like the young man can play after all. Let's hope he doesn't quit his day job, though." The words fell flat. The crowd didn't laugh this time. They only clapped louder. Some even booed Thompson. And in that moment, the power shifted. Marcus looked out into the audience. He saw Jamal jumping to his feet, cheering. He saw classmates who had mocked him now, wiping their eyes. He saw his mother standing taller than ever, tears shining. He realized something. The humiliation had failed. Thompson's cruelty had only made his victory brighter. For the first time in his young life, Marcus felt unshakable. He had faced ridicule, sabotage, and doubt. But he had not broken. He had played through it, and the music had spoken louder than anything else. When the applause finally died down, Marcus left the stage. Violin clutched tight. His legs wobbled, but his heart felt steady. Students patted his shoulder. Parents he didn't know stopped to tell him his song had moved them. One elderly man whispered, "Son, that was beautiful. Don't ever stop." Behind the curtain, Thompson glared, but his smirk was gone. His eyes held something new. Defeat. For once, Marcus wasn't the boy with the scratched-up violin. He was the boy who had turned pain into power, and nothing Thompson could do would ever change that. The gym buzzed for the rest of the assembly, but nothing that followed carried the same weight as Marcus's performance. His music had stolen the show. Later that afternoon, as families gathered their coats and filed out into the cold, more than one parent stopped to tell Principal Harris what a gift Marcus had. Harris, who had once overlooked the boy, now nodded with visible regret. He had seen the truth. A teacher had tried to break a child, but the child's spirit had proven stronger. That night at home, Marcus sat at the kitchen table polishing his violin. His mother kissed the top of his head. "I told you, baby, no one can take away what's inside you." Her voice cracked with pride. And for Marcus, that moment meant more than all the applause in the world. The following week, whispers spread across the school. Students who once mocked him now asked if he could teach them a few notes. Some even admitted they wished they had cheered him sooner. And as for Mr. Thompson, his attempts at sarcasm fell flat. People no longer laughed with him. They frowned, as if finally seeing through the mask. His power over Marcus had crumbled. But the real victory wasn't revenge, it was the music. The violin had carried Marcus through humiliation and turned it into triumph. The lesson is clear. You don't need to be the loudest voice in the room to be heard. Sometimes the most powerful answer is to let your truth sing through your actions. So when life tries to humiliate you, remember Marcus, hold steady, play your song, because in the end the world will hear it. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories.